Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I'm breaking down a bunch of spoilers for Modern Horizons 2. Now, in today's video, we're going to be looking at the rares and mythics that were spoiled for Modern Horizons 2 today being May 28th. It's been kind of a crazy couple days for me, so we're only talking about the rares and mythics. We should maybe return to the normal style next week, but we'll see. Maybe I'll end up liking this style. I will be doing more coverage of Modern Horizons over the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. Either way, guys, let's just jump right into this, looking at our first card, that being Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide is a 5-cost white creature angel spirit 2/2 with flying and protection from black. Then it has Echo 3 white, meaning that at the beginning of your end step, if this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, and I said end step, I meant upkeep before, sacrifice it unless you pay its echo cost. So essentially you pay mana for it, and then, the next turn you have to pay the echo cost, otherwise you sacrifice the creature. But generally that's not a problem for this card, because it also says, when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that's why this is played. This is a 5-cost card that can just return something from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this will often be rezzed. It is also a, angel, and it is a pretty good card. It sees some decent play in older formats, and it is being reprinted now into modern, so that's pretty awesome. Next we have Sacrificer Invect. It is a white creature human cleric 2/2 with protection from black and red. And when it enters the battlefield, you exile all cards that are black or red from all graveyards. And then, if a black or red permanent, spell, or card not on the battlefield would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. So you are essentially hosing red and black, which are the two most common colors probably outside of green, to utilize the graveyard, I would say. And so it's a little bit interesting to see that such a specific card, if this ends up seeing any play, it'll be in sideboards, because if your opponent isn't playing your black or red, this is literally a 2/2 for 2, and that's not great, especially when the 2 is white. So yeah, if this is going to see any play, it will be in sideboards. Either way, next we have this card, which is a reprint into modern, but it is fire and ice. It's 1 and a red for fire, which is an instant, and it deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. So either 2 damage to something, 1 damage to one thing, and another 1 damage to another. So that's pretty good. And then ice, 1 and a blue, instant, tap target permanent, draw a card. Pretty cool. I like the fact that if you don't need the kill spell of fire, you can cast ice to kind of do a temporary kill spell and then also replace the card in your hand. It's not my favorite of all cards, but I do think it's one of those more iconic cards that's kind of cool to see brought into modern. Next we have Damn. It is a black sorcery, and it says destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated, and it has an overload of 2 white, meaning you replace target with each. Now, what is this supposed to be referenced to? Well, this is a reference to the card Damnation, which is 2 black, destroy all creatures. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated, essentially. And so it is a pretty good card. However, the overload cost, you are essentially paying for a Wrath of God, and the black is actually pretty good. Black destroy target creature, pretty good. Of course, it is sorcery speed, which limits it from being a horribly broken card, but the fact that this can be single target removal if you need that, or board wipes, is pretty, I guess you could say, damn cool. A little cheesy there, but yeah, I actually really like this. It is, that single target spell, meaning that if you draw out while you have a massive board state, it's not useless, and if you do need to board wipe, it can also be that. So, I mean, technically, this is a better Wrath of God. So any deck running Wrath of God should now run this card, because it is technically the same thing, but with the option to single target. Of course, if you are running black. So I think this will be a highly sought after card. Next we have Endurance. It's 1 green for a creature elemental incarnation. It's a 3/4 with flash and reach. So flash, reach, 3/4, pretty good. And then you can evoke it by exiling a green card from your hand, meaning that you exile a green card from your hand, and then when you do that, you put it onto the battlefield from your hand and then immediately sacrifice it. So you'll do that to get the ETB, which the ETB is whenever Endurance enters the battlefield, put up to one target player, puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order. This is one of the weaker ones of this cycle. We've had like Terror, Endurance, obviously, let me think. There's one other one in this video, and there's the blue one, which is like Persistence or something like that. Subtlety, that's it. And they're all these creatures that have flash or not flash, but they all have like evoke, and you exile a card from your hand to do it. So essentially, they're able to be free cast the spell by exiling cards from your hand, which is not a very small cost. That's actually a lot. But it is pretty interesting. I just think this one is one of the worst ones, although the creature itself is pretty good. 3/4 for 3 with flash and reach, and then you also get to host someone if they are playing a graveyard strategy. Not an awful card. Next, we have Giadrone dayada. I just butchered that, but it's a 1 blue, black, red legendary planeswalker that enters with 4 loyalty. So 4 mana, 4 loyalty. And then it has protection from permanents with corruption counters on it. So, a permanent that has a corruption counter on it can't target it or, deal damage to it. So that's pretty big on a planeswalker. But how do you get these corruption counters? Well, you can +1, and each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Put a corruption counter on up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker. So if an opponent has a planeswalker that could maybe kill dayada, you would be able to kind of stop that, but you can also stop creatures from being able to deal damage. So if she activates her plus ability enough, it means that she can't really be attacked, which is really, really powerful. And then you can -3 to gain control of target creature or planeswalker until end of turn, untap it, and put a corruption counter on it. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to take your creature, swing it at you, and then it also then can't come back and attack dayada. And then -7, gain control of each permanent with a corruption counter on it. Note that says permanent, so if you can somehow get corruption counters on your opponent's lands, you might be able to do something with that. It'd be kind of interesting to see, are there other cards that put corruption counters? If so, that could be kind of cool. Next, we have Caldera Complete. It is a 7-cost legendary artifact equipment, living weapon, meaning essentially you equip it, when you cast it, it equips itself to a 0/0 germ. So it's indestructible, so the artifact itself is indestructible, and it says equip creature gets +5/+5, has first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. This card is insane. So this is, it's an equipment, but really what it is a 7-cost 5/5 first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, exile anything it hits. And you know why that exile anything it hits matters so much? Because it has first strike. If you block with 4 creatures, I could, deal 1 damage to each of them with first strike and they all get exiled. And then, yeah, it has trample, which also means that they can't just keep blocking it with 1/1s. And it's also indestructible, so even if they block with enough things, it's still not dying. And the Caldera Complete is indestructible on its own, meaning they can't even destroy the equipment to kill it. So this card seems really good, and it's a 7-drop that any color can run. I actually think this card is absolutely bonkers. Next, we have Braids Cabal Minions. So this is a reprint being added into Modern. This is actually banned in Commander. It's 2 black for a legendary creature human minion, 2/2, and it says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land. So this is pretty good in Commander, hence why it got banned, but it's generally a stacks card that's really annoying to play against, and I don't know who is necessarily looking forward to this in Modern, but I'm sure it'll have its uses. The fact that it can make you sacrifice lands is really what makes it so devastating, because the person running this always has that option of, oh, I'll just sack Braids, so they never have to sack a land, but your opponents, they don't really have that option of, oh, I can just make everything stop, and they will eventually have to sacrifice all their lands, and so it can be a very devastating card for that reason. And it'll be interesting to see if it has any impact on the meta. Oh, by the way, I didn't say this, and I've said this at the beginning of every other video. This is a very casual perspective. I do not follow the Modern meta. I'm mostly a Commander player, so I'll be taking a look at these cards from that lens. Either way, we have now this card, which we can translate as a reprint into Vindicate. It's 1 white and a black for a sorcery, destroy target permanent. So that can hit a land. It's 3 mana, but it is a sorcery. I do think it is a pretty good card, and it'll be interesting, I know I've said this, to see how it kind of goes into Modern. There's not really much else to talk about with this card because it already exists, but, being able to destroy anything for 3 mana, pretty good. Although sorcery speed is a massive downside, so that may deter people from actually wanting to play it. Next, we have Sanctum Weaver. It's 1 and a green for an enchantment creature Dryad 0/2, and it says tap, add X mana of any one color where X is the number of enchantments you control. So that's pretty good. So you At its worst, it's a 2-cost tap, add 1 mana of any color, because it itself is an enchantment. But the second you have like 3 or 4, you're tapping this thing for 3 or 4 mana, probably to cast another enchantment. Honestly, this card seems bonkers and really, really, really good. So yeah, your enchantment decks are definitely going to want to run this, especially because it is both something that cares about getting a lot of enchantments and is an enchantment, which is just, what can really push those decks to be very powerful, because it's not like, oh, I need to draw my win cons and my enchantments. It's no, they're the same thing, and that really pushes the power level of it. Next, we have Solitude. It is 3 white white for a creature elemental incarnation 3/2 with flash and lifelink, and you can evoke it by exiling a white card from your hand. And when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power. So essentially, it is a Swords to Plowshare, 1-cost instant exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. But you can do it technically for free by exiling a card from your hand, or you can actually play this as a 3/2 flashing lifelinker, which the fact that this has flash means, oh, they attack with 2 creatures, you exile one of them and then block the other, and that can actually be a pretty devastating turn of events. But even then, you can also just have no mana open, and if you're about to die, exile something. This seems like one of the best ones because it seems like one of those cards that can really just save you from losing the game on the spot. So I think this one's pretty good. Next, we have Esper Sentinel. It's a white-cost artifact creature, human soldier, 1/1. And whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So this is almost a Rhystic Study, except Rhystic Study is a blue enchantment, and it can draw you a card on every single spell cast, not just non-creatures and not just the first. However, they always only have to pay 1. They could theoretically have to pay 4 or 5. And so I really think this is an awesome effect. However, we've talked about how white needs card draw, and this is great, but I don't think the answer is giving it other colors effects. And this is obviously different. It's a non-creature, it's only the first time each turn, so it's definitely limited. But I feel like, white is getting all these effects that it normally typically doesn't. So it has directly land ramp and directly card draw, versus red gets things like treasures and impulsive draw, which feel much more red than these feel white. And so I'm not trying to say that this is a bad card or one that breaks the color pie. I just want to say, as we look forward, I hope white gets a little bit of its own unique identity rather than just doing what blue and green do, but just, slightly worse. Next, we have Sterling Grove. It's a reprint into Modern. It's green and a white for an enchantment. Other enchantments you control have Shroud, and then you can pay 1 and sack it to search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, and put that card on top of your library. So, pretty good card. It not only protects all your enchantments, but then once either this thing gets targeted by a removal spell or you need another enchantment, it can be a tutor. So, this does everything you're wanting to do in those enchantment decks, and so it's perfect. All right, that is it for this video. This one's a little bit shorter because we're only talking about a couple cards, but I really thought those were the fun ones to talk about. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date. Hopefully Monday we'll return to the normal style of spoiler videos. It's just been a crazy week for me. I will see you in the next one.